Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. My name is Kevin, Kevin in all caps. YouTube.com/ at Kevin 24/7. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. I want to answer a question, or at least elaborate on a question that I'm receiving more often here recently. DMs falling into my Instagram inbox, questions in my email, Patreon members asking as well. What happens to Social Security benefits if the U.S. hits the debt limit? Now, this is going to be an ongoing topic of discussion because what we are experiencing right now today with the potential debt limit default could potentially happen next year, the year after, and so on and so forth. And I think it's very important that we understand the disruptions to benefits and how they would strain the budgets of many of the 66 million Americans who get Social Security. Now, number one, millions of Americans will probably get their Social Security checks even if Congress fails to reach a deal, which would raise the U.S. debt limit. And I'm going to share this with you directly from the Wall Street Journal. Economists and policy advocates say the same, that millions of Americans will probably get their Social Security checks, even if Congress fails to reach a deal to raise the U.S. debt limit. Still, there's a chance the checks many retirees rely on to pay the bills could be delayed or temporarily reduced should the government default on its obligations for the first time since the U.S. Treasury was established in 1789. And if the checks are held up, the federal debt ceiling crisis could trigger household financial crises. Now, this would be a precedent of the long list of accomplishments that the Biden administration would love for the American people to be so happy and proud of. This would be the first time that the government would default on its debt since its inception. I don't know if that's something I would want to brag about, but regardless, we need to understand the implications of their actions or lack thereof and ultimately prepare for what this could mean and how to survive it. Now, I understand that this may be a touchy subject and I may not be a popular person right now by bringing you this information. But please don't shoot the messenger. I'm only trying to inform, update, and educate, okay? And we need to understand what probably means. Because probably is not a definite. Probably get their Social Security checks is just that. It's an uncertainty. There's no guarantee. And we got to think, if you are, or someone you know is dependent upon Social Security direct deposit checks from the government for 100% of their income or a majority of their income with no other outside source, no other side hustle, no other gig, no other passive income stream, no other diverse income, no other dividends coming in or any other cash flow or safety plan or safety net to fall back on, no other job, part-time job, full-time job, whatever it may be, then this is important. Because even if probably turns into delayed, bills have to be paid. Necessities need to be purchased. Obligations need to be fulfilled. And without the income, albeit quite possibly not enough income, fixed income, putting you in a position of living paycheck to paycheck. Paycheck being the money that you would receive from the Social Security Administration, the SSA, U.S. Treasury checks, or U.S. Treasury direct deposits. Then not having those on time could potentially, quite possibly, put you into a serious bind. Let's think about it. Let's think about it from a standpoint of any direct deposit or any payments that you have linked to your bank accounts that you are time sensitive based on the direct deposit coming in from the SSA. Putting you in a tight budget where quite possibly, which I wouldn't be surprised based on some of the people that I've spoken with and have communicated with and have worked with, consulted and coached, helped to improve their financial situations, build businesses, create multiple streams of income, get out of debt, get their heads above water. Oftentimes, their discretionary surplus for each month is $100 or less, maybe a little bit more. But at that point, you have very little room for error, very little breathing room. Mistakes would be very costly. I think a overdraft or insufficient funds transaction fee hit by a bank would be anywhere from $25 to $35, maybe more. 3 or 4 of those as a result of not receiving your Social Security payments on time, with only having about $100 of discretionary income left over, could potentially wipe that out. Although you may get your Social Security a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever the delay may be, now you've incurred added fees, costs associated with the direct deposits not hitting your bank account. This could then potentially put you in a hole, could put you in a bind, put you behind the 8 ball. You could then have your own deficit at home, potentially defaulting on your own loans and debts owed that you are obligated as a guarantor, signator on whatever it may be. Could potentially see your power get shut off, could potentially see your utilities cut off, could potentially see your car repossessed, could maybe even see being evicted, which would be devastating. All at the hand of the government not coming to an agreement and you not receiving your funds on time. Living paycheck to paycheck, in a sense where literally every week or 2 weeks or twice a month, when you receive your income, your money, your whatever resources that would be made available to you, at a time like this, in a period of time of high inflation, a recession, questionable longevity and security and liquidity in the banking system, U.S. conflicts internally with the Treasury and the Biden administration, Congress, and the current budget and debt ceiling limit and deficit, I would much rather be in this position, in this day today, in a much better position where I have insulated myself and my family and potentially my businesses and ultimately my survival from the whims of the negative impacts that could hit anybody at any time through no fault of their own. Now is the time to really consider buckling down and finding ways of becoming more sufficient, building savings, building a safety net, a cushion, and also multiplying and diversifying your income. Diversity, security, cash flow. Very, very important, folks. I've been telling you this, I think, since November is when I really started telling you guys about this. And it really isn't any more true today than it was then. But now I think people are really starting to see how the diversity in cash flow would have been very, very useful in preparing 6-7 months ago when we started talking about this, for the fact that, yeah, there's a legal obligation for the government to pay these beneficiary recipients. But if there's a shutdown, if there's a default, if they can't, then you realize that you have to wait. Odds are they're not going to not pay you, but who knows how long it'll be before you actually receive these funds. Now, granted, we do know that there is a slated shortcoming of the Social Security Trust Fund 2032, 2033, 2034, depending. And honestly, my opinion, with the news that's being spread around and potentially misinformation being shared with the masses, it could only lead to that trust fund shortcoming actually occurring sooner, maybe 2030, maybe 2029. Why? Because people will be in fear. They will be afraid. They will panic. And then they will draw Social Security as early as possible so that they can get what they can get before there's nothing left to get. If that makes sense. But most importantly, these direct deposit delays are quite possibly the biggest risk that could be a potential outcome, negative, albeit. I don't think that we should worry about Social Security being canceled or Social Security being wiped out. But I do worry about not getting paid on time. We've seen instances just a few weeks ago where banks, fully functioning, operational, major U.S. Wall Street banks, big banks. I'm talking about banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. Huge banks, not Silicon Valley Bank, not Signature Bank, not First Republic Bank, that are destroying our banking, this fragile mental construct of banking before the implementation of CBDC, which will be a whole nother can of worms that we'll have to work through. But these banks, the account holders, the customers, were not receiving their direct deposits because of a glitch in the system, an error, a malfunction, a bug, AI acting up. At the end of the day, they got their money eventually, but it still happened. It still caused pain in the interim. It was still an inconvenience nonetheless, and more so for those who were relying on these payments and these direct deposits to hit, to then offset transactions that may have been pending. Because we all know that there's a large portion of the population in this country that are not in a financially stable and strong position. We know that. You guys have told me that. Quite possibly a majority of my audience may be in that state. And when that is the case, we have to understand and realize that we do not have the ability to sit back, cross our arms, fold our arms, and just say, no, they better give me my Social Security. I paid into that. That's mine. I've earned it. And this is by no means, in no way, shape, or form, me saying that you haven't. But it's me explaining to you the risks that are associated with that, and that being your only and primary source of income, in conjunction with the potential likelihood being warned by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen of what could happen in just a matter of days. So, what insurance can you have against this? How can you stop living paycheck to paycheck? There's a variety of options and answers to these questions. I've discussed the 5 basic principles before, many of which many people choose to ignore. And they find themselves in these situations where they feel like life is unfair. People are against them. The government's against them. They have been born into poverty. They can never achieve wealth. They can never be okay. They can never be at peace financially. Which, again, it's not all about the money. But I can guarantee you this. Promise you this. When you don't have to worry about money, and when you don't have to worry about getting paid on time, and when you don't have to worry about paying your bills on time or paying them in full, when you don't have to worry about your credit, when you don't have to worry something as simple as calculating just how much fuel you're putting in your tank because you can't go over and fill it because that would be too costly and you can't afford that. When you don't have to worry about those things anymore, life does become much simpler, much easier. I promise you. Oftentimes it's after that point where you then start focusing on making so much money that then you take on a new burden of stress, a completely different burden of stress. Or if you're in that position and then you put yourself and you place yourself unnecessarily at risk by trying to achieve more at the expense of losing all that you have. But I can tell you this, if you can get to a point where you don't have to worry about, when you get to a point when you have substantial savings, you have substantial capital, a safety net, when you have zero debt, and when you have multiple streams of income coming in, you can breathe, you can relax, you can have a good time, you can pay a bill without looking at it. You know, you not necessarily saying that you should, but you can swipe a card and not really worry about the total because you know it's going to be approved. And even if you did worry about an incorrect amount, you used an American Express credit card, so you know you're protected. But unfortunately, that's not the case. It's not the case, and a lot of people don't have money. They don't have credit cards. They don't have available credit. They don't have good credit. So any credit card that they would use, the limit's probably very low, and the interest rate is very high. They don't have the money available to pay it off, and that's why they use a credit card to begin with. They pay high interest on their auto loans. They have no money. While the world around them continuously gets more and more expensive, inflation continues to rise, despite the Fed saying that it's coming down. You guys know my thoughts and my opinions on this, and if you don't know for sure, then you need to come over to Patreon where I actually break down what inflation really means and how much more it really is than what they say. But we all know that even if they came out tomorrow and said that CPI reports inflation numbers are at the target 2%, we all know that we still feel the same way about our own personal financial situation. Now, I can speak in generalities and from different perspectives and hypothetically and say that we would feel like we're still broke, we're still poor, but I wouldn't feel that way because I don't. But I don't want you guys to either. This is not me sitting here trying to boast or brag or show off or anything like that. Despite some people may have already chosen to make that opinion and judgment against me, I simply want to help you guys understand what's happening, what could potentially happen, and more so how you can better prepare yourself to avoid these circumstances, this added burden, this stress, this weight, these problems. The answer, the solution is going to vary depending on who you are, your capabilities, your willingness, your drive and determination. But I'll say that for those out there who aren't looking to make more money, for those out there who aren't looking to spend less than they make, for those out there looking to not have a solid budget and know where their money's coming and going before it even happens, for those not interested in eliminating high interest revolving debt, wasteful debt, consumer debt, and those not interested in saving money, building a nest egg, a safety net, and investing for increased growth and return, despite what the headlines tell you about the S&P 500 and the stock market, these are all signs and indications to buy. Buy when things are on sale. Buy at a discount. Do you want to wait until the headlines say the stock market is booming, all the stock values are up? Well, then you're going to be paying the premium. You're going to be buying in at the point of which everyone else has made their money. Well, how would you make yours? It doesn't make sense. But for all those people who ignore these 5 basic principles and choose to accept a victim mentality, those who choose to continuously spend frivolously and wastefully. For those who choose not to go the extra mile and do things that could potentially put them in a much better financial position. For those who choose to continuously tack on more and more debt, credit card debt, consumer debt, store credit debt, whatever it is, buy now, pay later debt. When you experience this interruption, when you experience high inflation, when you experience a recession, when you experience job loss, those are the ones who get hurt the worst. And I don't see a big assistance or stimulus or bailout plan coming to help those. I don't see it. I see, and I told you so, from the government, as these middle class and working class, blue collar, grinding, what America is built on, force of the population being eliminated. And unfortunately, some of them are seniors who've worked many, many decades and are going to experience this hiccup and this delay in their Social Security, their fixed income benefits that they rely on, their retirement plan, their retirement strategy, which your retirement strategy should include income, not just savings, and an income that exceeds the rate of inflation. Otherwise, you're on borrowed time. Unfortunately, those folks are at risk. It's a dangerous situation. It's a slippery slope. And after all that they've been through, it's unfortunate that they would live their, latter years worrying about surviving and potentially thinking about having to go back to work. Now, I hope that this doesn't happen. I really do. And depending on who you talk to, they say that it will never happen. Or quite possibly, if it did, it would be solved relatively quickly because of all the anger and backlash that would ensue. But let me just ask you this. If it did happen, if your Social Security payment was delayed, if your Social Security check didn't show up on time, if your Social Security direct deposit wasn't there the day that it's supposed to be there, how long could you wait to get it? A day? 2 days? A week? 2 weeks? A month? 2 months? Longer? And depending on how long you could wait to receive that without your life being turned completely upside down, potentially facing eviction or foreclosure, becoming homeless, having to live in your car, your truck, or your van, foregoing paying your bills, being able to buy food, experiencing food shortages and empty shelves in your own home, in your pantry. Depending on how long that time frame may be, what could you or would you be able to do to supplement that income in the interim? Or would you be a sitting duck? Would you be at the mercy, the whims of the U.S. Treasury, the government, Congress, Democrats and Republicans? I can assure you this. Most, if not all of them, will be unaffected by the choices and decisions that they make or choose not to make. The actions that they set into motion or the inaction that they continue to display by sitting on their hams and twiddling their thumbs while talks are being had and bills are being proposed and budgets are being discussed and calculated. But I can guarantee you this, when the calendar shows that they're on vacation, they're taking a vacation, okay? And if there isn't a resolution made by then you just got to wait even longer. They've already said that any disruption, any agreement not made on this new budget and a default of the U.S. debt ceiling deficit could lead to student loan forgiveness being canceled or delayed, SNAP, EBT, food stamps, supplemental nutrition assistance programs being temporarily delayed, people not receiving their benefits, wiped out, the IRS not receiving their funding required, and unable to process tax returns and field customer service questions and complaints. Also, stopping people from having access to their funds that they need so desperately today. You guys know. I know you know. And the Social Security Administration experiencing loss in the form of job loss, terminations, and lack of staffing capable of processing payments and paperwork and initiating benefit claims for the people who need it the most, who need it badly, desperately. Unfortunately, the ones in charge who have the power, the control of who lives and dies, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, figuratively speaking, they got plenty of money. They got plenty of investments. They got plenty of income streams. They've got plenty of resources and capital. Everyone affected by their choices and decisions that are made or will be made or have been made in the past, don't bother them. So it's, in my opinion, of utmost importance that we do all we can to take care of ourselves, because no one else is going to do it. You cannot rely on anyone but yourself. Some instances, a tight-knit community and family, but even then, sometimes they'll let you down. As I said before, I hope this doesn't happen. But based on the information provided, probably is no guarantee and there's no certainty. So I'm going to have to assume that there's a 50-50 shot that this could be a problem, that people could experience delays and disruptions in their Social Security payments and direct deposits, that they could face their own liquidity crisis and all the problems that would ensue as the first piece domino gets pushed over and the others continuously fall with no way of stopping them until it's all done. Everything's just a pile of rubble on the ground. I hope this doesn't happen. I really do. And if that is the case, this can serve as a warning shot for those who realize just how vulnerable they are in these situations at these times to make changes in their lives and improve their financial situations and better prepare for any potential hiccup or disruption that could occur due to no fault of your own.